And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the PSBTA Technical Solutions webinar series. My name is Martha Ellis, and I am the Executive Director of the Public Safety Broadband Technology Association, or PSBTA. As an association, our primary objective is to work as an end-user advocate for all primary and extended primary FirstNet users. This includes all first responders and service providers who support response, mitigation, and recovery efforts during emergencies. We've created this webinar series in an effort to bring you the most current and accurate information on all aspects of broadband use for public safety personnel, including the latest developments in technology specific to the ecosystem. Today's webinar is the 10th in our AT&T Lean-In series, specifically designed to not only showcase the network, but many of the FirstNet approved applications which can be found in the FirstNet app catalog. The FirstNet built with AT&T Lean-In webinars are all about helping you optimize the FirstNet network, assuring the highest level of preparedness for you and your team, and the confidence that your LTE communication system is safe and secure. If you have missed any of the previous presentations, please feel free to visit thepsbta.org to watch the archived webinars. Before we get started today, I have a few housekeeping items. All attendees have automatically been muted to reduce background noise. Any questions should be submitted directly to us through the questions function, which is located at the bottom of the menu on the right side of your screen. Questions will be answered at the end of our presentation, and we will attempt to answer as many questions as possible, yet still stay within our allotted hour. We will follow up with any questions that don't get answered during the live portion of our webinar after we are finished today. If you have any further questions when the webinar is over, we will also be providing emails for the presenters at the end, so you can follow up at your convenience. Also in the panel to the right of your screen, I'd like to point out that there are handouts available that should be downloaded prior to the conclusion of the webinar. Cybersecurity is foundational to a robust communications network, not only for protecting personal information stored on or transmitted across these networks, but also in assuring the network is protected against bad actors seeking to take down emergency response communications capabilities. In the throes of an emergency response, there is no room for compromise when protecting critical and life-saving communications systems. We are fortunate to have some of the foremost experts in cybersecurity with us here today to discuss the extraordinary security features utilized by FirstNet, built with AT&T, implemented specifically to protect the public safety broadband network that was built just for you. Our presenters from the FirstNet AT&T team this morning are Pam Heatley, Security Architect, Cybersecurity Consultant, Ken Walsh, Security Platforms, Principle-Cybersecurity, Max Colson, Security Architect, Senior Technology Security, and Steve Moser, Network Visitor Program Manager, AT&T Business Solutions, AT&T, who was unable to join us via webcam today, so we have included his picture on our slides. They will take you through all aspects of the FirstNet AT&T Fortress, protecting and assuring reliable and secure communications across your network. We also have Steve Devine, Director for FirstNet Strategy and Policy, who will take questions on FirstNet, our nation's most reliable wireless public safety network, and frankly, the linchpin in successfully leveraging your AT&T or your LTE communications. Oh boy, having a morning. With that, I will turn the time over to Pam to get us started with our webinar, Protecting Your Public Safety Network from Hackers. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Martha, for having me. I'm excited to be here. And I am part of the security awareness team within AT&T Chief Security Office. We produce security awareness training for AT&T employees, and I have been tasked with, now my slides aren't going forward. Can we just try it one more time? Sorry about this. And there we go, great, okay. So I'm so happy to be here to talk to everybody. My contribution to the security awareness team is to write and produce some of the same awareness and training for FirstNet that we do for AT&T employees. The material we create is available on the FirstNet certified app, and my colleague Max will talk a little about that later. But for now, I want to talk about security awareness training and even give you a short demonstration on what security awareness training looks like. So why do you need to do security awareness training? Well, the training isn't about software or hardware. It teaches your team what are hacker tricks and how to avoid them. And awareness training addresses behaviors of those using computers, laptops, and mobile devices. So when your team is savvy to the ways hackers gain access to your information and/or network, they'll make better behavioral decisions. When you keep security issues top of mind, your staff has a better chance of reacting in a positive way to a hacker's tricks while they're focused on other aspects of their job. We know that 92% of breaches occur because someone clicked on something they shouldn't have. And with simple and consistent awareness training, you can drastically decrease the chances of becoming a victim of a cyber attack. So why is it important that first responder agencies train their teams? Well, you have information that hackers want. First responding agencies have medical records, they have financial records, they have emergency systems like emergency call lines and 911 systems. And hackers know that it's important that those systems remain optional. So they know what you would do to get those systems up and running once they take them down. So I want to talk to you today about some of the common ways that hackers infiltrate your network. And that is simply getting their target to click on something like a malicious link or a malicious attachment. Well, first of all, a hacker's attack comes out of nowhere. It's unexpected. And it usually comes from an email, a text message, or phone calls. Those are things we call phishing. It's when a hacker uses email. Vishing is when a hacker uses calls, and smishing is when a hacker uses SMS or text messaging. And the goal of all of these types of attacks is to get you to click on something. A malicious attachment, when you click on a link, you could be downloading malware. And when you click on a malicious attachment, when you click on an attachment, you could be downloading malware. When you click on a malicious link, it can lead you to a spoofed web page where you give away your credentials, your sensitive personal information like social security numbers or financial account numbers. So the way hackers do this is through emails and other things. But first, we're going to talk about emails. Hackers are always trying to find new ways to trick us into clicking on something. In emails, they'll imitate trusted banks, maybe retailers that you buy things from. They create messages that look really authentic and from official sources. Most of these messages, they threaten and they scare, like, I don't have all your credentials so that the certification is invalid, or the accounting department thinks there's been some fraudulent charges on your account. A lot of times they want to rush you into acting that you need to respond immediately or we're going to close your account. There's emails that tempt you. First responders can sometimes get offers that are too good to imagine. Book your trip now, that there's a good deal going on. And then there's a scam that I would like to talk to you about, which is something that actually happened. This email is a graphic of an actual scam where a hacker learned about a pharmacy break-in from a newspaper. He learned the name of the store owner, created a bogus email address with the owner's name on it, and called the tip line to find out who the officer in charge of the case was, and sent a malicious file pretending that it was a picture of the assailant. In this case, the file unleashed ransomware. Now, the good thing here is that hackers leave clues. And if you look closely, you can see clues in each of these emails that I've showed you. And lucky for us, there are 3 steps to take so that you can spot clues and spot hackers' attacks when they happen. Check the sender, check the language, and check the links and attachments. So let's look at the sender. If you take a close look at the from field, sure, the name of the store owner checks out, and you've probably talked to the store owner before, but the email just doesn't look right. Maybe you've gotten emails from him before, so that's a good time to look back and see if there's a different email that he sent you. But when we look at this email, Edmund Logan at Pharmacy RXFIXMALL, it clearly looks funny. When you see something like this, this is when you proceed with caution. Even if you know the sender, assume you're not completely safe. You want to check the language. A lot of times, phishing emails will look like spam, and a lot of those come from out of the country, and the person writing them English isn't their first language, so there will be spelling errors or erroneous capitalizations. That's a clue that you could be looking at a phishing email. And then if we look again at the email from our hacker in the pharmacy episode, take a look at the text in the email. Detective Tawar, caught this on my security cam. Maybe you're burglars? Sincerely, Edmund Logan. Think, does the text look like it would come from the person it says it does? Does that look like the owner of a store that's been burglarized would send? Maybe you're burglars? It just doesn't sound personal enough, and that could be another red flag. And then check the links and attachments. Look at an email with a link. To see where it really goes, all you have to do is hover your cursor over the link, and it'll highlight the actual link. So it'll show you where the link goes. So instead of agencyapps.com, this is actually going to downloadmalware.com. Attachments. Now in our pharmacy scam attachment, it says that the store owner sent a photograph. Well, we know the photographs are generally PNG files, JPEGs, PDFs. This is an EXE file. So you want to look at something like that. Does the file match what the email says it is? Because that's another red flag. Well, now that we're more mobile and people are on mobile devices more and more, hackers have moved on to other ways of trying to trick us. They've gone from phishing to what we call smishing, and that's SMS phishing. So these are things that come over text message. So in a smishing scam, you'll receive a text from an unknown number asking you to click on a link to take further action. The sender may pretend to be a company or pose as a friend who's in trouble and has lost her phone. There's some of that going around. This is an actual smishing scam that's taking place. The message looks like it's coming from a contact tracer. So let's look at the same things we would look at in a phishing email, like the sender. Well, if you look at the sender of this email, it's a regular 9-digit phone number. Most organizations send they send text message from a 5 or a 6-digit number, something like 40-555. A 9-digit number is not coming from an organization. And let's look at the language. Even if you think you know the sender, and we know there's contact tracing going on, how would you know that this is legit? Well, would you expect an organization to communicate in this way? For instance, Would this organization just send you a link to get tested, or would they try to talk to you? A quick Google search will reveal that contact tracers rarely text you and never send a link for you to click on. If they text you at all, it's usually a heads up that they will be calling you soon. And in this text message, just like in the phishing email, you can check the link. And you do that on your phone by putting your finger over the link and pressing down and holding it. That will open a preview menu. Your preview menu will show you exactly where that link is going. And again, it's going to downloadmalware.com. So that link is not what it says it is. And finally, I want to talk to you about phishing emails. A phishing email, a phishing scam, is phishing through voice message or phone calls. And a lot of times you'll get a voice message asking you to return a phone call or to log in to a website or something like that. This particular one I'm showing right now is also a real scam, a call from a superior asking for your credentials because they need to get a document or something that right away. And the call comes at a chaotic time. Maybe it's too loud to tell if it's your superior's voice. But she's in a hurry, and she needs a document, or she needs to make a payment, and she needs your credentials. In phishing scams, it's always best to hang up and call the person or company back with a trusted contact method. So now, if you receive a suspicious message in any of these forms, your best bet is to stop and think. Chances are most of the attacks against you will use one of these messages. If you think you've spotted a suspicious message or received an eyebrow-raising phone call or an SMS message, your best move is to stop and think. Hackers rely on you acting without thinking. So first, analyze the situation. Even a skilled attacker on the other end of the line, even with a skilled attacker, you have the advantage because the ball's in your court. The hacker is asking you to do something. Do not click any links or give any information. There is no email that you have to answer. There is no click that you must click on and no phone call that you must act on immediately. If you feel something is wrong, do not do what they are asking you to do. But there are things you can do. You can do a quick web search to see if there's a scam that matches just what happened to you. And if the caller is from a company or a person that you recognize, you can hang up and contact them through a known trusted website or phone number. Same with an email that comes from someone or you recognize or a company you recognize. And lastly, ask your agency how to report a phishing, or smishing scam, and then report it. Well, this concludes my presentation, and I'm handing my time over to Ken Walsh.
Thanks, Pam. So in one of Pam's examples, there was, she brought up the topic of ransomware. And that's going to be what I'm going to be talking about for the next little bit. We'll just cover some really brief topics on what is ransomware if the folks on here don't already know what it is. How do you get ransomware, or how does anyone get ransomware? And what do you do if you suddenly find yourself with ransomware or someone's reporting to you that they have ransomware? So firstly, what is ransomware? And ransomware is really just a combination of two things, ransom and malware. So we can essentially call it malicious software meant to deny access to a computer, a network, or a service until a payment is made. And we just have an example up here of what might happen if you either get ransomware or in a case you're looking at with ransomware. Typically, or in some cases, you'll get these screens that will essentially say, that your computer, your files have been encrypted. And kind of also like Pam was showing, it's going to try to tempt you into paying the ransom. A lot of times it's in Bitcoin or some kind of cryptocurrency, but they'll also try to rush you by saying, we're going to delete your files at a specific time, or we will raise the ransom at another time. So that is oftentimes, it won't always look like this screen, but it very well could. So how does someone actually get ransomware? There's a lot of ways someone can get ransomware. Pam was just talking about one of them. So in cases of phishing, so if we take the smishing example of text messages, if someone clicks on a malicious link, they can download something to their phone that they didn't want to or didn't know they were downloading. If we take the email example, in fact, the exact example that Pam was sharing was actually referring to trying to rush a detective on a real case with potential evidence, or so the detective thought. And when he clicked the link, or she, for all we know, then you click the link and your computer has ransomware. And you can also get it through a voice call. There could be a scam going around where someone might call up saying they're your IT department, or they're your, it's in that loud situation, they're your supervisor. They need you to go to a link and download something in order to get something done. And in those cases, they're again trying to rush you to get you to do something maybe you wouldn't ordinarily do. So that's the way the phishing would pass ransomware. From software and hardware vulnerabilities, things might come about from development practices. So whoever developed the software, if it wasn't necessarily done in either the best or the newest way, there might be a vulnerability that could then be exploited. Older software. A lot of cases might end up being that software is not patched. So as new software is put out, companies will issue patches, and they'll often recommend that any users update those to the newest packages. And what that does is a lot of times it could be closing security vulnerabilities that whoever created the software or hardware has since found. Zero-day vulnerabilities. And this isn't necessarily something that is willingly put into software or even hardware. It's a case where something may have been built totally fine, but someone found some kind of way to do something that the system wasn't intended to do. And that would be where we would call something the 0 day. And default passwords. So if we take examples of things like routers, a lot of times they're going to come with a default password. And it can be the same default password for every router of that make and model. And sometimes people don't change those passwords. Sometimes they'll say, I don't have the time, or it's the convenience of it being an easy password to remember, just because we all have so many. But it's also then a way for a hacker to be able to see, oh, you have this type of router. Let me see if I can just get in with an easy to guess password. You can also get ransomware from networking vulnerabilities. And that could just be something like, what do I have on my computer at work or at home, really anywhere that's open to the internet? If you think of how much scanning activity actually happens on the internet of different computers just looking to see what responds, what doesn't respond. If there's a given vulnerability out, that becomes a potential entry point for ransomware. and it could also be placed manually. It could be an insider, or it could be someone who maybe breaks in somewhere, and they'll try to then gain access to a network to plant the ransomware. So these are just different ways you can get the ransomware, or maybe someone you know got ransomware. So in the case of you or someone reports to you that they got ransomware, I don't know what to do, what can you do? The first thing that is recommended is not to pay the ransom. Just because you pay the ransom, it doesn't actually come with a guarantee that your computers and networks will be decrypted. The next thing you can do is maintain backups of files and configurations. If you do this, it enables you to quickly restore your computers or your network or whatever has been impacted, and what we would like to call restoring integrity, so you can get back to business or get back to what you need to be able to do. Patching devices and software with the latest updates. We talked a couple minutes ago about if a software or hardware vendor puts out a patch for your software. Sometimes they'll go unpatched, and it goes back to that same concept of it's an inconvenience to patch, it takes time, this system can't be taken down for any period of time. But by patching your devices and software, it further protects you and the users from vulnerabilities that are being closed in those patches, so then it can keep potential issues like ransomware out. And potentially the most important thing, remain calm. Don't panic. It's so important in situations like that, as I'm sure everyone on here knows, just in responding to any type of issue, to keep a cool head and think through how you want to respond. And so with that, that's all I had. I'm going to pass it over to Max, and I'll talk to everyone in a little bit. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Just hang on one second. Okay. So I'm Max. My name's Max Colson. I work in the AT&T Chief Security Office with my colleague Pam Heatley, and we've been tasked with, as Pam said earlier, creating training materials, cybersecurity awareness training materials for FirstNet. And to do this, we created an app. It's a certified FirstNet certified app. It's called the Cybersecurity Aware App. It's downloadable on the FirstNet app catalog. And on the app, you'll find many different types of training materials. Just a quick overview of what those are. We have 4 video series. The first series is specializes in a current topic, which is COVID-19 awareness. And that's basically hackers taking advantage of the current situation and trying to scam people, and real security analysis to talk about that. We also have another series, which is really in-depth training about specific cybersecurity awareness topics, also given by security analysts. We have a motion comic, which is depicts real cybercrime. And we have another animated series too, which is specifically for kids and community outreach, which is a little bit lighter, but something that they're more able to digest. Each video series is accompanied by different tip sheets, and these tip sheets sort of act like they're lesson. They act as just like reminders. You can hang them up in your office. They're really good. And the final thing we have are lesson plans, and something we developed called Train the Trainer sessions, which is where we actually sit down with FirstNet customers and go over how they can help better train their team on different cybersecurity awareness issues. So I'll go into more depth now with each of these things. So like I said, the first video series is COVID-19 awareness. Like I said, hackers are really trying to take advantage of the situation of the pandemic, and we've gathered real cybersecurity analysis to tell us just the different scams to be looking out for. Some of the samples examples include like business email compromise. They can hack into your speakers. A big thing they're doing is charity scams. So they'll like I said, take advantage of this virus and just basically just scam these first responders. The next video series is called Cybersecurity Academy, and that's with these this is more in-depth training with real cybersecurity analysts. They talk about topics like vishing, smishing, and phishing, like Pam just gave an example of before. You would actually see that in the video, and along with other topics like social engineering, types of malware. This is really like your in-depth stuff, whereas our other video series are more of awareness content. But if you really want to get a deep lesson, these are the videos you'd want to watch. Our next series is the motion comic Breach. This is actually a very interesting series. All the stories, even though they're animated, they're all real life cyber security. They happen in real life. They're real incidents. And what happened was, the way we came up with this is we have focus groups where we share our content with real first responders, and they wanted something that really involved them, where our other video series are more broad and can apply to any kind of cybersecurity issue. These specifically apply to first responders. And we've shown this to them, many of them, and they all love it. We rarely get any bad feedback on this. And some of the examples we talk about are like phishing attacks, ransomware. The example that Pam talked about earlier with the pharmacy being broken into, that's one of the episodes as well, because it actually happened. So it's really interesting to see how it plays out. Our final video series is for kids in educational institutions and community outreach. Again, this is much later. It's very much awareness. And they talk about different things like charity scams, careful, links you click, social media especially, because right now, like kids are getting introduced to social media and just technology so much earlier than they used to. Like you'll see like a 5-year-old walking around with like an iPad. So it's good to, keep them aware, keep them on, and even for their parents to watch videos like this so they know like, about different like parental controls and things like that to keep their children safe. And there's still a first responder theme that goes through all of this. We also have posters and tip sheets. These, again, go along with each video series topic. So there'll be one, on phishing, there'll be one on ransomware. And these are just, again, just light reminders. They're nice to, hang up or, hand out to your team if you're giving a lesson on a specific topic. And finally, we have our train the trainer sessions and lesson plans. So we've also been tasked with providing training for first responders or FirstNet users specifically. And what this is a live phone session between security training consultants and the local first responders. We've talked to people in like pretty much all over the country now. Many states, California, Florida, right here in New Jersey. And basically what we do is we sit down with them. It's a web call, and we develop lesson plans. And what the lesson plans act like are scripts, and they're about like 10 to 15 minutes long. They're designed to be incorporated with whatever actual cybersecurity training your team has to do. So they're short. They're just little modules to add on at the end. And it tells the first responder or who's ever in charge of whether it's IT or the chief, whoever's in charge of giving the training exactly what to say. It tells them, like gives them examples. There's like pre-composed questions and answers. There's a little quiz at the end if you want to test your team's knowledge. And basically on these calls, we go through this. We talk to the first responders. We ask them, what do they, what can we do to help them? Like, is there something they're having an issue with, like ransomware, like is a big problem in their office? We can, help them through that and provide custom lessons for them. They also, like I said, act like scripts. So even if the first responder doesn't really know what to say, this just provides everything for them. And like I said, these sessions are really good because we can talk to the first responders, find out what they want. Like I said, without talking to them directly, we wouldn't have known about to create our motion comic, which was breach. So it's all really good information. And lastly, that's actually it. If you have any questions, you can contact us at FirstNet FN's Cyber Aware at att.com. We'd be happy to talk to you about the app. Again, it's on the FirstNet App Store and downloadable there on iPhone and Android. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Steve Moser.
Exterior photograph of the center. Our lives and livelihoods have long been dependent upon the AT&T network, and of course, FirstNet in particular is crucial to public safety. So I want you to understand that AT&T has devoted an enormous amount of resource to network reliability and network security, and that really is job one here at the Global Network Operations Center. I want to give you a virtual peek today. Hopefully in the near future you can come and visit for real. This building, by the way, has 2 commercial power feeds. It has its own generator, and it also has a battery backup like most of our key central office locations do. Now in this picture here, you get a better sense of what we got. Underground bunker, the monitors across that big sweeping wall, the managers working at their respective consoles. It's really like mission control for AT&T. We do command and control for the network and of course for FirstNet. We have a role to play in the optimization of the network. Think traffic control. In fact, post-pandemic lockdown, the traffic on the network increased dramatically almost overnight. There was a 50% increase in VPN traffic as everybody started working at home and connecting into their corporate networks. And there was a 25% increase in traditional voice communications. Well, that requires the GNOC to do load balancing to make sure that the network remains available even when it's under stress. And because of the GNOC sees so much from its perspective here, we play a very active role in the cybersecurity of AT&T. When you get down to the console level here, these individuals see a lot of data. There's telematic data from monitoring all the various infrastructure of the network. Then, of course, we're always poking and probing the network, and that generates an enormous amount of KPI, performance metrics. So we've got all of that data. And then, of course, there is transactional data, the movement of packets from source to destination. All of that activity kind of leaves a paper trail. Think of it as traffic flow or traffic data. And this data is crucially important to us. In fact, in many ways, the GNOC is like a big data operation. You see big data analytics used in all sorts of public safety areas. Crime prevention comes to mind. We've been doing big data analytics here for quite some time, and I'll try to give you a sense of how that all works here. Now, this control panel, which you see on your screen now, gives me access to some of the live data of the GNOC and some historical data. So let me share very quickly some of that with you. Now, on your screen now, you see an overview of the current status of our undersea cable system. So this is the basic highway of the AT&T network. This fiber optic footprint, is laying there on the ocean floor. There's enough to go to the moon and back if you stretched it all out. But the key thing here is it gives us an enormous amount of visibility onto what is happening around the world, because you see our network, this network you see on your screen, is peering with many other internet providers around the world. And from our vantage point, we can see the traffic, not only in our network now, but what's happening beyond our network. And so the GNOC stands here, if you will, and just watches the traffic go by. But by the way, you'll notice here off the coast of India, this red line, and there's some red lines here south of Japan. You probably don't need me to tell you that red is not good, right, in an operations center. But not to worry, one of the key responsibilities of the place is to reroute traffic around malfunctioning equipment and load balance properly, optimize and make the latency or any of the other implications of the rerouting transparent to customers. That's really the heart of what we're trying to do here. Now, let me show you some more live data from the GNOC. What you see on your screen right now is a snapshot from one of our systems, which incidentally here in the left-hand corner you see is called Flood. I took this snapshot about an hour before we got together. You'll notice the date stamp here at the bottom, September 10th. The time is universal time here in the upper right, and you're going to want a -4 hours for those of you on the East Coast and -7 for those of you in Pacific Daylight Time. What this flood system does is it takes in all of the source and destination traffic data that we observe at the places where AT&T peers with the rest of the world. So you've got source and destination address, you've got port and protocol, all of that, what is commonly referred to as net flow or metadata, the data of the data. So we're not looking at anything private here. We're not doing what we're not supposed to do. We're just looking at the transactional data that surrounds the payload. And then we sort it out and we put it in different categories. And that's what the color code is all about here in the upper right. Let's just highlight a few of them. The light blue and the dark blue here at the top represents all of the traffic associated with surfing the web, which we obviously do a lot of as individuals. This purple area here, which really dominates, that's access to VPN, among other things. And of course, that's a big area. As I said, we had a 50% increase right off the bat when everybody started working at home. And then at the bottom here, this yellow is carrier to carrier infrastructure activity. That's what we call it. Think of it as all of the underlying housekeeping that's required to make the internet work for everybody. And for each of these categories or traffic types, there's a dotted line which represents what our expectations are. Generally, we expect all of the data that we see to be predictable. The data of the network kind of is in sync with the collective rhythms of all of our behavior. So you kind of aggregate everything that's happening, aggregate all the usage patterns of individuals, and what the GNOC sees is very predictable rhythms, almost like a cardiologist would see the rhythms of your heartbeat. And what we're looking for ultimately are anomalies in that heartbeat. And these anomalies often suggest trouble ahead, maybe a malfunction of the of the network itself, or perhaps a security breach. In fact, if you take a look at this screen here, this is all of that infrastructure traffic. We're kind of drilling down into it. And you'll notice here this very obvious spike. That's not a good thing. Our network managers usually take a very close look at any big volumetric difference that we see, because generally speaking, that volumetric difference could be the telltale signs of some bigger trouble ahead, perhaps some anomaly in the traffic or the usage itself. Some of the things that Pam talked about, some kind of malicious activity that's causing an anomaly in the normal expected flow of things. So the managers in the GNOC are looking very closely at what is happening here. Now, by the way, what we're looking at is the data from the point of view of the internet. This is not necessarily what's happening in our network. We're trying to learn from the internet to determine whether or not there's a risk to AT&T going forward. In terms of the FirstNet, I want to show you this particular screen very quickly. This is an analysis of possible spam activity. So of the complaints to their respective carrier about text messaging spam. And this yellow area here at the bottom represents what we would consider the normal amount of spamming. I mean, it never goes away with some level of it. But when we see this purple bleeding out over here, what that indicates is the number of unique sources of spam are very concentrated right now. And this would suggest some concerted effort going on that we need to get to the bottom of. So our FirstNet people will take a very, very careful look at what's going on with this spam activity. Obviously, we want to protect the integrity of FirstNet and of the AT&T network overall. So hopefully I've given you some insights here using some of the tooling and the data that we have at our disposal here at the GNOC. And I'll now pass on to Martha.
Great, thank you all so much. If I can get you all to come back on camera with your mics open, we're going to just go through some Q&A. Steve, you're up first and foremost, so I'm going to start with you, Steve Devine. You know, in the context of security, what kind of things can first responders anticipate that might set FirstNet apart in the context of cybersecurity for the public safety space?
Thanks, Martha, and thanks to all the great presentations that highlight, FirstNet's, resilience and capabilities in support of first responders. It's the only nationwide public safety broadband network, and it's specifically intended to focus on the needs of those first responders who need, robust capabilities in their applications and their devices, as well as a secure environment in which to work in, whether it's HIPAA or CGIS or any of the other critical information they've got to manage. It's important that the security that we spoke of today is inherent and isn't something that they have to activate or something they have to seek, access to when they make a transaction. It needs to be embedded. It needs to be in real time, and it needs to be available to them as they go forward. So as the only nationwide public safety broadband network, that security is inherent, as you heard today, in the network. It continues to respond. It continues to protect all of AT&T's customers, including those FirstNet customers. We're at 1.5 million FirstNet users today and growing, over 13,000 agencies, with 125 applications and growing that are in the FirstNet App Store, and then 150 devices, all offering the secure, robust performance for first responders that we that we've seen here today. So I want to thank my colleagues for their sharing of their security perspectives.
Steve, very quickly, can you speak a little bit about the core that FirstNet's run over and why it's different from a commercial network?
Sure, great question. Thanks, Martha. So FirstNet works on a dedicated physical core. It's not a virtual core. It's a physical core that all of the FirstNet customers' devices operate through. So because that core is independent of our commercial core, we can treat that with the additional security and the additional reliability and robustness that first responders expect. So FirstNet users on a dedicated physical core separate from the AT&T commercial core, and that really gives us the opportunity to make those changes and to make that experience what first responders need and deserve to protect those they serve.
Great, thank you so much. I think it's really important for people to realize the key differences between FirstNet built with AT&T and the other commercial offerings, and you made that clear with the virtual versus the actual separate core. So thank you, I appreciate that. Pam, I'm going to ask you a question here. You know, I think people might apply some of this software and get the feeling that it's going to stop all phishing emails. Do the software solutions stop all phishing emails, or do people still have to be vigilant?
People always have to be vigilant. Because they go hand in hand, your software solutions and your behavioral solutions, because hackers are always finding new ways. They're creative, and it's best to just learn how to be savvy to the things that are going on and the ways that they engineering. Just be savvy to the way that they can manipulate people and learn to spot it when it's happening.
Yeah, they are definitely students of human nature, are they not? So keeping that in mind, who is most susceptible to things like phishing emails or vishing or any of the number shings that you brought up?
I think anybody who's on a device is susceptible. We've heard through some agencies that the people at the 911 systems, people who are day in and day out at computers, it's sitting at a computer where sometimes you just get run down or you're tired, or you're just not as up to par as you usually are, and boom, you click on something. It's the way it is. And also where there are people out in the field dealing with, the unique thing about first responders and the agencies is that a lot of people aren't sitting at a desk. They're doing 100 different things. They're in crisis situations, and it's easy to not pay attention to an email that comes in or a text message on your phone when you're in the middle of a crisis situation. So hackers take advantage of that kind of thing. They know who they're dealing with and who their targets are.
And when we're trying to multitask, which seems to be the order of the day, I can see where it'd be very easy to inadvertently click on something that you shouldn't. Ken, I'm going to shift to you for just a moment. You mentioned not paying the ransom. So explain what a panicking individual should do and why you should not pay that ransom when infected with ransomware.
Well, part of the reason you don't want to pay it is there's no guarantee you actually get the decryption key to actually get your stuff back. You might still pay the ransom and end up, you're going to have to reset all your devices that got encrypted anyway. So what you should do is, it goes back to that remain calm. So I can imagine what probably anybody, their eye would get about that big when that screen pops up, just from panicking. So it's just so important to try to remain in the moment and think of either, it doesn't even have to be training about ransomware, just you're training on how to respond to a chaotic situation. This just becomes a different type of chaotic situation. So it's just remaining calm, knowing that, okay, I or the organization have backups of the data, and what's impacted. So the quicker you can recognize that and respond to things and remain calm and pool and collected, it really enables you to help get through that situation.
Well, and you also brought up the distinction between an organization versus a personal attack. I really think it's important for everybody that is still on the webinar to recognize that if you have an IT department, that is clearly your first step. If you are sitting at your desk working for an agency and this type of notification comes up, clearly you should not be trying to mitigate this yourself. You definitely have to work through your IT department and allow them to exercise their broader, deeper knowledge of the network in general. So I'm actually glad you brought that distinction up. So after you unlock a network, are there going to typically be other cleanup necessary? I mean, is there other elements of that necessary?
So it probably will depend on the situation of what type of ransomware and how it entered. So if we take something that, I don't want to get too technical, but something that moves lateral, so it likes to bounce from left to right, from computer to computer, it might be that there could be multiple systems impacted versus maybe something's very targeted and it's only trying to hit a router or a gateway, in which case it's maybe a smaller cleanup. Maybe it's still a big impact, but so it kind of depends on the situation.
So I guess what I'm hearing you say then is when you experience this sort of thing, it's safe to assume that a thorough network evaluation is going to be imperative to make sure there isn't some other cascading element to what that ransomware may have rendered. So, all right, we are getting short on time.
And you can get that from just when you report that, whether it's to your IT team or if you have a specific team that you report security events to, they would be equipped to take that kind of deeper analysis to look at that.
Okay, fantastic. All right, I'm going to move on to Max right now. Max, I really loved the educational component of this because clearly this is an ongoing effort to stay ahead of what's going on and try to educate, right? Because if people are educated to these types of things, they are less inclined to be victims of it. So will you be adding any new videos to your series?
Oh yeah, definitely. To current series, we're always updating and making new videos. And then we'd like to start making some new series too that don't exist yet. And we're kind of we'd like to talk to more first responders and find out exactly what they like. Because like I said, the motion comic breach came out of talking to them. So it's really helpful to talk to the customers directly, and we can learn from them and what they need and what issues they're having and what other videos they might like to see, or even just content if it's graphics, lesson plans, whatever.
Okay, and then I actually just got a question in about accessing the cyber training info. So does the cybersecurity app have a website that people can go to learn more about the educational component?
Currently, it doesn't have a website, but if you email us at, what was that email? It was FirstNet or FN CyberAware at att.com. We can, help, you figure it out. It is available on the FirstNet App Store, and it's also on the Apple Store and Android Store.
Okay, so and your email will be coming up here shortly. And actually, if we could go ahead and put that email slide up, because we are running out of time, so that folks will have the opportunity to capture those emails. All right, in the spirit of time, I'm going to move on to Steve Moser quickly and ask about the GNOC. Are there tours available of the GNOC?
Yes, there are. We are open to the public. You have to arrange the tour through one of your AT&T account representatives. Right now, of course, we are closed because of the pandemic, but hopefully that will change soon.
All right, fantastic. We are out of time. So again, I want to thank our presenters today. Fabulous information on all aspects of protecting ourselves, and clearly the things that FirstNet built with AT&T are also doing on our behalf to keep the first responder network up and running and reliable. So we hope you all enjoyed our webinar today and felt that it was time well spent. We deeply appreciate your participation. Again, we are the Public Safety Broadband Technology Association, and we want to be your advocate for all aspects of FirstNet utilization. By being here today, you help support our efforts to continually bring you cutting-edge information about FirstNet, the nation's only fully dedicated mission-critical first responders network, and all aspects of the ecosystem that is being purpose-built to your advantage. Please visit our webpage at thepsbta.org for more information on the association, our upcoming webinars, and recordings of all of the previous webinars. We also want to draw your attention to the network, to the work of the Public Safety Spectrum Alliance. We are highly encouraging you to get involved with our current effort right now at thepssa.org to learn more about the vulnerability of public safety's 4.9 gigahertz spectrum and why it's at risk. There's also a petition on that page that would appreciate you signing to show support for the PSA's effort to preserve this network for the sole purpose of public safety's use. In appreciation for your attendance today, you will receive a free membership to our association for 2020. You will be receiving a discount code and a follow-up email, which you can use during checkout when you register for membership. Please let your friends and peers know that by attending one of our webinars, it also includes this free membership to the PSBTA, which is a $75 value as a gift from us, as we are all trying to navigate our current situation with COVID. Finally, consider visiting All Things FirstNet as well. Their team continually compiles valuable information on FirstNet and the developing ecosystem. This concludes our webinar, Protecting Your Public Safety Network from Hackers. Please join us on September 16th for our webinar on public safety's 4.9 gigahertz network at imminent risk to learn more about the recent FCC announcements that puts the spectrum at risk of being compromised for public safety's sole use. Again, thank you for your time and be safe out there. Take care.